Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Jason Blaine. 2026 marks 125 years of dedicated service by the Australian Army and its predecessors. Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Claude Herbert Roberts. We warmly welcome his family who are watching the live stream of this ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by a representative of the family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you. If you're able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Claude Herbert Roberts. Claude Roberts was born on the 23rd of June 1912 in the small town of Yarrawonga on the banks of the Murray River in northern Victoria. He was the second youngest of 5 children born to Joseph and Maud Roberts. By the time Claude was 13 years old, his family had moved south to a property known as Roseneath in New South Wales. There, Claude's mother took her own life, and care of the younger children fell to Claude's elder sister, Mary. At the beginning of the Second World War, Claude was working as a farmhand at Savernake Station near the Murray River in New South Wales. Roberts enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force on 11th of July 1940. After a period of initial training, Private Roberts was transferred to the 2nd 14th Battalion in October. He and his new comrades boarded trains and travelled to Sydney, where they embarked on the troop ship Aquitania, bound for overseas service. Travelling by the way of Bombay, Roberts and his battalion arrived at camp in Palestine in late November. The men spent their time training until early April, when they then moved to Egypt to bolster defences along the Libyan frontier against an expected German attack. The 2nd 14th Battalion returned to Palestine in late May, where it prepared for its first campaign, the invasion of Syria and Lebanon. Roberts and his battalion launched the 21st Brigade's operations in Lebanon, attacking Vichy French outposts in the early hours of the 8th of June 1941. Having taken part in the drive along the coast and the fighting along the Zareni River, the brigade moved inland to Jazin to reinforce the 2nd 31st Battalion. Amidst the action in early June, Roberts was found absent without leave and was confined to barracks for a week as punishment. He was back in action in early July, however, as his battalion fought its last major battle of the campaign around Darmour. The men then remained as part of the garrison in Syria and Lebanon until early January 1942, by which time Roberts had again been found absent without leave. This time, his punishment doubled in length and he was confined to barracks for 2 weeks. Sailing from Egypt in late January, the 2nd 14th arrived at Adelaide in late March 1942. Its time at home, however, would be brief. Japan's entry into the war and its seemingly unstoppable push through the Pacific caused increasing panic, and units were sent to counter the threat to Australia. Roberts and his battalion arrived at Port Moresby in Papua in mid-August, and within 3 days were advancing along the Kokoda Trail to confront the rapidly advancing Japanese. The battalion's first clash with Japanese forces took place at Izarava on the 26th of August. The battle began with Japanese forces clashing with soldiers of the 39th Battalion's forward outposts as the first 2 companies of the 2nd 14th Battalion arrived to relieve them. The next afternoon, the 39th was again attacked, and the Japanese were able to penetrate one of the company positions before being beaten off by 2 quick counterattacks. Fighting continued throughout the 28th of August as the Japanese sought a weakness in the Australian defences. The rest of the 2nd 14th Battalion arrived this day, and Commanding Officer Lieutenant Colonel Albert Key assumed command. The men of the 39th were moved to the rear to allow the 2nd 14th to take the brunt of the fighting. The next morning saw ferocious attacks. As C Company of the 2nd 14th Battalion gave way, Japanese soldiers poured through the gap before an Australian counterattack restored the situation. As night closed in, the Australians, now in danger of being overwhelmed, withdrew to positions around the Izarava guest house. The Japanese followed close on their heels and on the 30th of August heavily attacked the Australians' rear, threatening to cut the track behind them. A further withdrawal was ordered, but many had to fight their way out. When the 2nd 14th mustered the next morning, 172 personnel were missing, in addition to those known to be dead and wounded. Among the dead was Private Claude Roberts. He was 30 years old. Initially listed as missing in action, Roberts' remains were discovered by Australian forces making their way back up the Kokoda Trail. Buried at the Aurora Creek Military Cemetery on the 22nd of May 1943, his remains were later reburied at the Bamana War Cemetery in Port Moresby under the inscription chosen by his grieving family, always remembered. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Claude Herbert Roberts, who gave his life for us, for our freedom, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.